Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was a massive success. Obviously. I mean, you know about Sonic 2. And Sega wanted another main Genesis game to go about Sonic to go onto the console. However, with the new Sonic team working on Sonic 3, which turned out to be a lot bigger game than they thought it would be, 1993 was looking like it would be a year without a Christmas holiday Genesis Sonic game. There was Sonic CD, but keep in mind it was only on the Sega CD. They wanted something on the Genesis that everyone could play. So the American developers who worked on Sonic 2, known as Sega STI, were working on their own new Sonic game. And they had a couple different ideas. One of the main ideas was to base a game based off the popular Casino Night Zone, which is what you're looking at here for Sonic 2, and make a pinball style Sonic game. And yeah, that's one of the things they were doing. They had a very tight schedule for the game's release, but they were able to make a short little pinball game under the tight deadline of after working on Sonic 2 and making a game for the holiday of 1993. And that game, of course, ended up being Sonic Spinball. One of the games the team wanted to make was a game called Sonic 16, or just Sonic the Hedgehog, based off the animated series at the time. It, I guess, was 16 because 16 all around. It was made by the same team. Only a short demo was made, and of course, Yuji Naka was the head of Sonic Team at that time. Gave the gameplay trailer a thumbs down. The footage of this game is rough, if you couldn't tell. It's the best footage of the game because it was just a little demo for the Sega to look at, and it was about Sonic moving slowly, sneaking around, and throwing rings. What were they thinking? The idea of actually having more of a story-based Sonic game isn't bad, but the fact that his name is Sonic and he's moving slow as shit in the level is just very odd. Even in the cartoon, he runs fast, so I don't know what the concept was for this game. Just the concept of slow-moving Sonic. There are some interesting things in the demo, but it just seems like they just didn't understand what they're trying to do here. Like, they're like, okay, let's make something based off the show, but at the same time, they're making Sonic slow as shit, so whatever. Sonic Spinball, of course, released the holiday 1993, and it is a very interesting game, mostly because, as you probably know, it's made by STI, who are developers in America, and so they had a very American way of viewing Sonic. Sonic's canon in America was a lot different than the Japanese one, and they included some of those elements, including characters from the American canon, such as the Saturday AM Freedom Fighters, or even the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog characters, like Scratch and Grounder, who are technically based off Sonic 2 Badniks. But yeah, Sonic has a different sprite here. You can see he has a mohawk. Quite literally, it's something you do not see in the main Sonic games. He does not have a mohawk ever. And yeah, the game also sounds very Genesis. The soundtrack is good, but very, you can tell that it's a lot differently constructed than the other Genesis games. Anyway, let's go over the story. So the story takes place on Mobius. Now that's what the planet Sonic lives on is called in the American canon. However, later on, just be called Sonic's World or whatever. They don't seem to care that much, but I'll be calling it Mobius either way because I think it has better world building than just saying nothing at all, like in the Japanese version. So anyway, Eggman built this thing called the Veggie Fortress. Why is it called Veggie Fortress? I have no idea. I guess Eggman likes vegetables, and of course he has a pinball threshold that Sonic has to get over, and he has to collect 16 Chaos Emeralds in order to destroy it. Yeah, 16. They're all blue. Very odd. Tails drops them off here, and Sonic just has to fill his way up. And on top of Mount Mobius is what the base is called that was built on top, and get all the Chaos Emeralds. And that's basically all you need to know about the story. So how's gameplay? Well, it's pinball with some bit of Sonic platforming in between. Not a whole lot. And because of that, the game is not that playable, at least to get to point A to point B, unless you're really into pinball. I don't mind pinball, but the structure is kind of weird. This game, even though it has 4 levels only, will take a lot longer than your typical Sonic game. Sonic basically acts like a pinball. He gets hit by bumpers, and you gotta get him to certain locations, which can be easier than done. And each location, there's different little unlocks for Chaos Emeralds. But getting up there like I said, can be a lot easier said than done. Even if you think you can get there, you seem to always fail no matter what you try to do. So it's basically a whole thing where you gotta get Sonic up there, try as hard as you can. And of course the bomb parts, there's death traps, you don't want to die because you have a limited amount of lives. But like I said, it's so much easier said than done. You can get up here and look at that. I was able to hit the one switch, but how to get the other one? Well, you gotta wait and help you land on the right spot. Unless you're really good at pinball, this game is just not very user-friendly, at least for trying to complete the game. So overall, I'm going to be using a lot of different footage to actually showcase different parts of the game because, like I said, I don't have enough patience or skill enough to do this. I'm not a pinball fiasfinato or whatever you call it, so I'm not the best at this game. However, there's a lot of interesting elements in this game, so let's talk about some of the enemy and elements of this game and where they come from before we get into the actual game itself. A lot of the enemies in this game don't actually attack Sonic, like this guy, Buster, who's the first enemy, kind of this monkey flying guy. He just kind of flies around and you can hit him as a bonus thing. Not much to say there. All these Badniks have a very unique American-style designs compared to the Japanese Badniks we've seen before, so get prepared to see some interesting designs here. Cluckbird is also in the similar vein as Buster, who just a robot chicken that flies around. Robot chicken, but he flies around and basically just a little thing free to hit, doesn't damage Sonic. Though this thing looks familiar is because it has a reference to the animated series. Cluckbird is heavily based off the character Cluck from Sonic's ADM, as well as minor appearances in the Archie comics, who's just a robot chicken. Not referencing the TV show, but Eggman has a kind of a pet thing. Of course, he would have a weird chicken. He is Eggman, after all. I know I keep calling him Eggman, even though the show he's not called Eggman, but whatever, I'm going to call him Eggman still. Next, we got Pharaon. I think that's how you say it. And these guys are really weird. They're like spaceship guys with weird hooks. And like I said, they just fly around. There's little obstacles for Sonic to hit. I don't think there's any of the enemies really have anything interesting. If they do, I'll let you know. But right now, these guys are just spaceship guys. Yep. Krondor is another enemy that just flies around for Sonic to hit. Krondor, it's a condor with a little, looks like he's a little naked in his back there. He needs some help for propelling himself. It's actually not a bad design for a Badnik, if I do say so myself, compared to Pharaon, wherever the hell that was. Magma worms appear out of nowhere, and they act like kind of bumpers, where Sonic can defeat them after hitting them multiple times. They appear in batches of 3 or 2 in certain levels, areas. And yeah, they're kind of interesting looking. They're like, look kind of derpy at the same time, too. Rexon is definitely one of the more interesting of the Badniks introduced here, because it's a giant Leviathan that appears at the bottom of the screen. And he will try to eat Sonic. Like the other guys, he will actually try to kill you. And if you don't mash the button, you're going to die. Also, according to the Archie comics, which has a tie into this game, Rexon doesn't have any friends. Pretty sad. Robohead is one of the most disturbing looking things ever. It's Eggman's face, but demonified. Like, what is this thing? This is going to haunt my nightmares. Basically, it's the same as the magma worms. They don't attack you, just got to hit them multiple times until they die. Another new enemy, only appearing in the bonus stage, is Scratch, and this character is a reference to the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog character, who was one of the main of Eggman's main Badniks, and he's pretty iconic. Of course, the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, I think, is one of the first to have Eggman have sidekicks, and so Scratch and Grounder are the first to be a part of those. Grounder, of course, is based off an enemy, while Scratch is kind of an original character, loosely based off the Cluck enemy from Sonic 2. Of course, there's other Badniks that appear from the actual main game, like Buzz Bomber, Clucker, and Crawl. But we also got these two guys. These aren't enemies at all. They're Hip and Hop. And they're kangaroos that pup air up Sonic's ass. And yeah, that's all that is known about these guys. They do appear in this Archie comics as kind of a minor character, believe it or not. These two little kangaroo guys. So there's something. And the last characters appear in the bonus stage. Basically, after a level, you can get this bonus stage where you can get extra points. And one of them where you have to hit Eggman, but you also got to free the enemies in the capsules. Not enemies, but friends in the capsules. And there are all references to characters in the American canon, or the Archie characters, or the SADM characters, whatever you prefer. And yeah, those characters include Bunny Rabbit, Mutsky, Rotor, and Sally Acorn. So yeah, they have quite a few little characters there. You just saw Sally, and you can tell it's really old because she has the pink design. If you don't know, she had multiple different designs for finalizing the one that most people know her as. And yeah, that's pretty neat. So if you destroy them, you get to see those different characters. Like I said, those characters appear in the TV show and as well as the Archie comics only. So yeah, they don't even appear in the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. It's weird. There was 2 different cartoons at the time. Oh yeah, Tails is also one of them. There's Rotor. And it's pretty interesting to see those characters because you will never see them in any other Sonic game. Actually, Mega Collection, but that's about it. That's just not even like really I don't know if that even counts. Other than that, this is the only time you'll ever see these characters in a Sonic game. So all you fans of those characters, take it in, because this is the only time you're ever going to see them. And it's kind of a shame, too. Anyway, when starting the game, Sonic will be starting out on the Toxic Caves level, the first of 4 levels. And his main goal is to collect 3 caster molds, one in the middle, one on the right, and one on the left. He's got to unlock these gates and get up there in order to fight the boss of the level. There's quite a few little different elements. Like I said, there's toxic sludge in the bottom. There's weird tubes. There's toxicity everywhere. The toxicity of upper caves. You know, I wonder if System of Down likes this stage or not, because you know they like toxicity. That was a really bad joke. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, there's a couple of enemies here, like the Cluckbird, Magma Worm, and Rexon. Of course, as you see, if you hit some of the switches, the cancer will drain there, but you got to get up there by going to the left side and the right side, depending on which side you want to go onto. Now, if you're good, like if you're not good at this game, it's gonna be hard to do that. But if you are good, you'll be able to do it fine. Just gotta line up your shot. I find it really difficult, and as I say, tricky dicky to do it. But if you're good, you're able to line up much better than me. I just find like it's really hard to do. There's a bunch of little things that try to take you down, and even like little chutes that will force you down. Like here in this little crate here, this barrel. It's like some throw himself away, and that's actually how you get to the chaos realm. You gotta land down there and jump down here, which is kind of beat. The next thing I do to get the other cast thermals on the left and right side, you gotta pull this lever here for the minecart section, and then get all the way up to the top, where if you choose either left or right, you can go to the other side. Of course, it's kind of tricky-dicky because each side is a little confusing. But one side will take you all the way to the one of the cast thermals. The other side will take you to the other cast thermal. But you gotta flip the switches on either side to do it. And of course, once you're done with that, you go all the way back to the beginning. So yay! You gotta go back all the way to the top. Lovely. Once you did that, you can finally get all the way to the top to fight the boss. There's a boss fight in every one of these levels. And here's the boss. This is Scorpius, who is a scorpion with Eggman's face on it. And it's very disturbing. And it screams in agony every time you hit it, which is really quite disturbing. Anyway, this guy's pretty easy, actually. He does shoot sludge, but I don't think it even damages you, really. Because, you know, Sonic doesn't really have any... He can only die if he falls all the way to the bottom. What you do is you go inside and hit him and you kind of just beat him up, and yeah, that's pretty much it. These boss fights aren't really hard because, you know, it's a pinball game. What do you expect? As mentioned before, if you get a good ring bonus, you can do the bonus stage here, which gets you more basically points and extra lives if you do it right. And of course, this one here is the same as it was when I mentioned all the extra characters here, where basically you got these capsules and you gotta hit them in order to free your freedom fighter friends or just the animal buddies. So yeah, it's pretty neat actually to see some of this stuff, but like I said, they do look kind of derpy. Like that character there was supposed to be Mutski. It looks nothing like that character, but whatever. The next stage is Lava Powerhouse. Hip and hop will immediately hit you up, and basically it's the same thing as the other one. You gotta get the Chaos Emeralds in this level. There are two enemies here, being the Cluckbird and Pharaon, who are lovely names. And basically, the Pharaons like to fly in your way and be a nuisance. Basically, it's the same thing. You gotta get to the top and get your Chaos Emeralds, basically. Like you always have to do in these levels. Get the Chaos Emeralds, get to the top, and fight the boss, whatever the boss will be in this level. Usually the boss is something really weird. A lot of weird stuff, like these air pressure cannons that shoot Sonic around where you can control them. And you gotta get your bounce off these Cluckbirds in order to get to up here, basically, which is a lot easier said than done. Well, it's not too hard, but it's not as self-explanatory. Like, oh yeah, I gotta bounce myself up to get here. And basically, it'll either shoot you up or down, and that's where you get the three Chaos Thermals, and you gotta figure out how to get the rest from here. Anyway, once you figured out how to get the rest of the Chaos Thermals through a series of cannon shooting and weird transportation stuff and weird airs shooting up Sonic's ass, you finally get to beat the boss. And the boss is Robo Boiler, which are those creepy Eggman heads that I've seen before, and they appear multiple times, so you gotta hit each one by going up here, avoiding the puff of smoke, jump on in, and just beat the crap out of these heads. And I'm kind of glad that Sonic's destroying them because they are disturbing to look at. The next bonus stage is the same pinball table, but this time Eggman's teeth. You gotta hit them out and hit the targets in the background to get your bonus points. Knocking Eggman's teeth out. It sort of reminds me of that Toy Story 2 toy. The one in the movie, not in actual real life. The next level is The Machine. Creative name, I know. And this is much like the other ones. You gotta get the 3 Chaos Emeralds, and you gotta basically launch yourself up to different platforms and other stuff like that. And this is very annoying. You gotta be careful. Like, okay, here's one of the areas here. You just gotta line up, or you gotta go above them to get them. It's easier said than done, like always. There's, of course, your enemies. Most of the enemies, like I said, don't damage you. Only Rexon in the first level really did that. And, of course, there's weird tubes and other stuff. You just gotta go in conveyor belts, find the best way to get to each emerald. But, like I said, it's not the easiest thing to do in the world unless you're an expert. You have to play these levels multiple times in order to figure out what's the best way to do it. And a lot of times, it's not that easy, which sucks. Anyway, the three enemies this level are Buster, Cluckbird, and Crondor. Though I'm not seeing a lot of those enemies right now. I just see Sonic going for tubes a lot of the time. Yeah, this level is where I usually stop at because the mechanic is very annoying. You just gotta make sure you line up in order to get the Chaos Emerald, which is very annoying. Like, okay, I got up here, but uh-oh, it's not open, so I gotta go back up there and wait for the tube to be in the right spot. Not very fun level design, if I do say so myself. Anyway, you finally are able to fight the final boss after collecting all three Chaos Emeralds, and this is the Veggie machine. You know, the whole machine that he was built off of? Well, basically just a bunch of little bumpers you gotta hit, and you gotta hit all of them, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, these boss fights aren't really hard at all, so yeah, bounce on all of them and knock them out, which takes a pretty long time because, as you can see, there's quite a lot of bumpers, and it looks like they drop Chaos Emeralds too, which is pretty nice. They're all blue, and there's 16 of them rather than the usual 7, or sometimes 6. Well, when you're done that, you actually get to fight the Veggie machine. It turns out the machine is the entire Veggie machine. Here it is. The Veggie machine is just your roboticizer. It creates a bunch of cluck birds, and you gotta hit the sides in order to break the tube for the animals to coming in. So hey, at least you're stopping something. At least, you know, it's kind of gruesome seeing them get hit, and it's kind of fun to save them. At least you got some satisfaction when doing something. Usually you don't get to have the full benefit of actually saving the little animals. Usually you do, but a lot of times you don't get the actual, like, okay, here's them forcing them in. Then you gotta launch Sonic into the machine. I don't know why I thought the earlier part was the boss battle. I don't know, I'm stupid. And yeah, that's basically all there is to this level. The next bonus game is a giant roboticizer in the middle and a bunch of scratches walking around them, so you gotta beat all the scratches and break open the roboticizer. Pretty basic. Final level is called Showdown. Very creative level design. Basically, you gotta get all the way up here and try to get through each level. This level can be annoying because you can fall down pretty easily and die. And yeah, that's pretty much all you gotta do with this area. I don't think there's any Chaos Emeralds to get, so you just gotta basically get Sonic all the way up here. Now on the sides, you realize, oh, we're up in the sky. Okay, I don't know why there's no Chaos Emerald. I see one there. And yeah, like I said, you gotta get them in order to go up there and finally face against the main villain. Once you get all your Chaos Emeralds in this level, you shoot yourself up here, this on the side, in order to fight Eggman, who's now we're in space in order to fight him. Like, oh my goodness, we're really high up. There's only one enemy in this level, by the way, being the Crondor, so nothing there. So you gotta burst your way in for the side, and then fight Eggman. And this boss fight is known as Robotnik's ship, in case you're wondering, even though it's just basically Eggman, and there's a button on the bottom you gotta hit. And basically, we're hitting him all different types of angles, kind of destroy his ship, like, get out of this island, mother effer. And yeah, that's mostly all you really gotta do here. I also forgot to mention that there is a scoreboard on the top that basically says little different things depending on what you're doing in the game, and your points and all that other stuff, all that groovy things. In case you're wondering why are we hitting the switch at the bottom, well, it's to get rid of these Dr. Seuss nets that Eggman has protecting him. Once you get rid of them, they can hit him in the face. And of course, once you're able to feed him, Eggman turns into a bunch of black squares for some reason. I guess he was fake all along, and that's the end of Sonic Spinball. Or Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball, I'm sorry. And because the fact that we get all the Chaos Emeralds in game in order to beat the game, there is no alternate ending. So the ending is they're both falling from space, and Sonic is saved by Tails, while Eggman and his weirdly kind of off model design dies. Sonic winks at the camera, and that's the end of Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball. And of course, the whole mountain blows up. At least Eggman's facility blows up as he falls back into it. I guess Mount Mobius sinks to the ocean, never to be seen again. By the way, look how cool the Japanese box art for this game is. That is awesome. There's no quotations to quote here, but hey, for a game that was basically translated over to Japanese, it looks way better than the American box art, which looks like this. Eggman is on character, but he has his black, soulless eyes rather than glasses, and Sonic, once again by Greg Martin, has the same exact facial expression. This time he has a pinball legs, I guess, or bottom half, instead of his regular legs. You know, Sonic just doesn't have that ability to do that. So, yeah, whatever. The most notable thing about this cover is the cover was redrawn for its 8-bit counterpart, and Eggman has his Adventure of the Sonic the Hedgehog design, despite the fact he doesn't look like that in-game, which is pretty weird. Also, Sonic was redrawn. I have no idea. And yeah, if you couldn't tell, there is, in fact, an 8-bit version for the Game Gear and Master System. Released 1 year after the original game came out, Sonic Spinball 8-bit was released in September on the Game Gear in 1994, and 1995 January in Europe and South America for Master System. So yeah, As you can see, it's just basically trying to recreate the 16-bit experience. But how does it compare? Well, let's just see what the 8-bit version has to offer, rather than making a whole video, since it just copies for the most part the main game level for level and idea to idea, just in 8-bit. And if this happens, we'll just do that. There's not a whole lot of Sonic games that do this. There's I think the next game I'm covering is the only other one that's kind of like this, or the 8-bit counterpart. It's basically the same. Or in fact, the toxic caves are now known as the toxic pools. Everything else is pretty much the same here. As you can see here, the level design is very similar, just in 8-bit. And overall, it doesn't look too bad. I think the Game Gear version is a lot worse. This is the Master System version we're looking at right now. And it seems to have most of the elements from its 16-bit counterpart to, just 8-bitified. So if you have the Master System, here you go. You got another little version game to play. I don't think that Sonic Spinball is the most interesting game in the world, but hey, I guess it was probably easier to remake than any other Sonic game. Maybe not, because this actually looks like it'll be harder to remake, but who knows. Anyway, it looks like it's basically the same thing. You hit switches, just a lot less obstacles and a lot less going on compared to its 16-bit counterpart. Instead of Scorpius, or wherever it is, you fight this Eggman head on top of toxic pools here, and that's about it for that level. The minigame's a lot different, where we're in ancient Egypt all of a sudden, and yeah, you gotta roll up rather than using pinball clippers to hit certain elements of the level, which is, I guess, interesting, Of course, the Genesis version's better, because I don't know why it's in ancient Egypt. But yeah, look at that little Sonic sprite, he's adorable. Lava Powerhouse is mostly the same as its 16-bit counterpart, just the lack of elements that the 16-bit version had. But it's your basic same thing, collect the Chaos Emeralds, get shot at different things, and try to bounce Sonic all the way up. And unlike the 80-bit version of the Toxic Caves or Toxic Pools, the boss fight is exactly the same as the 16-bit counterpart, just lamer. The machine also looks pretty similar to its 16-bit counterpart, with a little bit more tubes and the same conveyor belts, though I think this looks a little easier than the Genesis version, but who knows, what do I know? And the boss fight is the same, being the Vegeta machine, and this actually looks pretty accurate to what it looked like in the 16-bit version, so props to the developers of the 8-bit version, which, of course, is Sega Interactive. So the same people. Who would have thought? And, of course, there is the last level, being the Final Showdown. So the Showdown is called the Final Showdown. So, they at least gave something different, instead of just calling it Showdown. Final Showdown definitely sounds better. This level also looks a lot more dangerous than the 60-bit counterpart, but probably not. Hey, I didn't even know they had life boxes, but apparently they do. The Final Showdown boss is very different, where you gotta run on these conveyor belts in order to break them. And there's no giant Eggman here, just a little baby one, a little baby egg. And you gotta hit him, and that's basically your Final Showdown boss, and that's basically the main differences between the 16-bit and the 8-bit version. Two of the bosses being different, they mostly play the same. I'm not sure which one's easier, which one's harder. You pick. I think most people are going to prefer the 16-bit version, just because based off visuals alone. But overall, if you gotta get your 8-bit kick, here you go. And yes, the cutscene is very similar to its 16-bit counterpart, with both Sonic and Eggman falling down from the sky, and it looks like Tails is going to pick Sonic up, and Eggman is going to be left for dead. Because, who likes Eggman? Or maybe not, it looks like Eggman dies, and Sonic also dies here. Does Tails pick up Sonic here? He doesn't pick him up like he did in the Genesis game there. And man, is the screen just glitching out there. I guess that Mobius there just does not like to live, I guess. And yeah, I guess Sonic died there because we didn't see him get saved. And actually, it's kind of neat that it ends on like a little pinball machine. Like, hey, we're playing a pinball machine the whole time. Isn't that nice? While Sonic Spinball ended up being a success for what it was supposed to be, it's not that well remembered, honestly. Most of it is just remembered for the fact that it features some of the American canon characters, like the Freedom Fighters and such. Overall, it's just a pinball game that isn't the most exciting thing in the world. Despite the fact they marketed the hell out of this thing and it probably didn't cost them much to make, they did end up making their money back, obviously, on this game, and that's good for them, I guess. But overall, it's just not one of those things you're going to want over any other Sonic game. But they did market this game very hard, despite the fact it's Sonic Spinball, some of the most exciting thing in the world. This Sonic comic here, issue number 6, we actually do own, was one of the examples of them marketing a game in the comics. Which, they do adaptations of the comics, but usually they don't do it, right as the game comes out. This is the first one they did, though. Sonic Spinball sold a lot of copies, and is not the most desired game. It's supposed to be re-released a bunch of times. So the original Genesis version is not a very expensive game. It's one of those games you might already have. Like I said, I think this game might be a good game for pinball enthusiasts. But overall, I think an actual pinball machine would be funner to play in this game, if I'm being completely honest. I've actually played funner pinball games. Pokemon Pinball, that's good. The Game Gear version, which is the 8-bit version, is also not that rare or expensive compared to other signed Game Gear games. Most of them so far we've covered haven't been really rare or expensive. Only $10 game loose, $21 game complete, and this is one of those games that came in a box, so it's not a very easy game to find box, but not very expensive here. So yeah, if you want it on 8-bit, there you go. The Master System version, on the other hand, is a completely different story. It is extremely expensive for what it is. It's not the most exciting game to buy, so it's probably not worth it unless you're a Sonic collector. I don't have any single Master System game right now. I just don't own the console, and I don't live in Europe, so I don't have the luxury of buying this, so it costs me a lot. So if you really like Master System and Sonic Spinball, I don't recommend buying it, actually, even at that point. Yeah, you could get Sonic Spinball on the Sega Smash Pack on the PC. It's one of the games on this version. I don't really recommend these old PC games because they have problems running. This one probably will work on my computers, but at the same time they have a lot of problems, and is ultimately not worth seeking out in the grand scheme of things, because there's way better ways to play these games rather than an old PC game. But it's not very expensive, so if you want it, there you go. In Europe, they released a 2-in-1 pack for Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Sonic Spinball. It is $31 loose, so not awful, but I guess it was very limited quality complete, because the complete price and new price compared to the loose price is insane. Like, geez Louise. Yeah, like I said, these games aren't that hard to find. I don't know what the PAL versions usually are for Game Gear games. I usually look at North American unless the game wasn't released there. But overall, I think Europe users or PAL players, you guys have better options to play both these games. So, unless you're a giant collector, yeah, don't waste your money. The Game Gear version of the game was also featured on Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut. Like I said in every one of my videos, Sonic Adventure DX had every Game Gear game unlocked for emblems. And that's all I gotta say about this game. The famous Sonic Mega Collection also featured Sonic Spinball. And like I said, I do recommend picking this game up if you don't have it, since it's pretty cheap on all consoles. And it features most of the main Sonic games. So it's definitely a recommendation if you don't have it. On the Game Boy Advance, Sega Smash Pack featured Sonic Spinball, of all games, on it. I don't really know much about this port, or even this game, to be honest. It is $10 if you find it loose. Most Game Boy Advance games are not going to find complete anyway, so it doesn't matter about $33 price tag. That's not bad. I have no idea how the emulation quality is, because we all know Sonic 1 on Game Boy Advance sucked ass. But Game Boy Advance can be a pretty good system when it comes to doing unique things, so I don't know why they weren't able to not do that for Sonic 1. Sonic Spinball, well, here's a way to play a GBA. I do like my GBA, so maybe one of these days I'll get this. Like I say all the time, the Sonic Spinball, the Genesis version, released on the Virtual Console on the Nintendo Wii, from what I know. And that's pretty much all there is for this releases. We had a lot of good Virtual Console games. 2007 was released. If you have it on your Wii, good luck. The Virtual Console is dead now. I don't know why Nintendo's Virtual Console and Wii was one of their best and not the later ones. I don't know why they take forever to put games on their Virtual Consoles and why they hate longevity of their video games, but whatever. The Nintendo Wii Virtual Console was great at the time. Sonic Gems Collection features Sonic Spinball 8-bit, the Game Gear version, for some reason, on it. And that's about it. Sonic Gems Collection's Game Gear games aren't really that noteworthy. Like I said, you can get them in the Sonic Adventure DX, and they don't even have all of them. So I don't know what they were even thinking with Gems Collection. Gems Collection is very weird. Like, I don't know why they didn't feature some of those games in Meg Collection. Like, other than Sonic CD, Fighters, and R, the rest of the games are basically not worth playing on this game. But yeah, they have them, including Vector Man. Very odd collection. Mega Collection overall is a better collection than that, but whatever. If you want to play the 8-bit version of Sonic Spinball, here you go. It's not the best game to play it on, because it's not really that cheap, and also, yeah. Well, I'm going to talk about this. Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, which features a bunch of Genesis games on Xbox 360 and PS3, includes Sonic Spinball. This is actually one of those I recommend, because it's not very expensive, and it has a lot of Genesis games. It's one of the easiest ways to get them, if you have either one of those consoles. I'm not sure if it's backwards compatible with the Xbox Series X or One. I don't think it is, actually, but overall, I think it's a pretty good way to play those if you have either one of those consoles. Plus, it's only like $8, so if you like Genesis, if you want to play more, but you have no chance, this is actually a pretty good way of doing it. Sonic Spinball was released on Steam in 2010, and it's only going for $5, which is really cheap. It is part of one of those that Genesis thing where it's an interactive thing. But yeah, it's probably one of the best ways to play it, since Steam games have a very long longevity. So yeah, I do recommend buying this version, even if maybe $5 is too much for this shit game on a digital copy. But I'm sure you can find cheaper ways of playing it even on Steam. But overall, not too bad. Another easy way to get the game on your modern day consoles is on the Nintendo Switch through the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. I actually don't mind it, especially for how many games you get, basically for not that bad of a fee, at least in my opinion. Maybe it could be cheaper, and they probably should start out with more games in order to make it worthwhile, and they probably should have more consoles, but hey, Sonic Spinball was one of the games first on the Genesis, and I do recommend the Genesis one. There's actually quite a lot of good games on the Genesis version. They actually put actual games that you might want to play, like from third-party companies like Mega Man, the Wily Wars, which you don't see a lot. There's no Mega Man on the NES for some reason, but it's on the Genesis, well, whatever. And Rystar's pretty good there. But yeah, of all the games to play on the Genesis, I don't recommend playing Sonic Spinball. There's way better options on the Nintendo Switch Online, but that is just one of the options you can do. Of course, I'm going to be putting Sonic Origins Plus in this game, in this video, because what else would it be? This game has been appearing every time I do these breakdowns. And the 8-bit version is the only one that appears here, because like I said, it features all the Game Gear games. This is probably the best way to play the Game Gear games, even though they're only the Game Gear versions, not the Master System versions. But overall, there you go, Sonic Origins Plus. Get Sonic Spinball 8-bit. I don't recommend playing it, but yeah, overall, there you go. Sonic Spinball, I don't think is really worthwhile to go back to. I'm counting the 8-bit versions. It's very similar, even if it is technically a downgrade. It's not unique enough to be a separate game on this tier list, so that's why I didn't include it. Sonic Spinball is more of a unique oddity, like, oh, look at this Sonic game that came out during this period of time, during the height of that character. And that's pretty much it. It was just a little thing, like, oh, let's release something for Christmas and the holidays, and we'll make a little pinball game for all the little kiddies out there. And yeah, other than, like, certain elements of the game, which aren't really that used, because they don't even use those American characters, other than, like, okay, the Toxic Cave song, that's about it. The game is pretty much kind of left in obscurity. It's just not that interesting, and I feel like for pinball games, I feel like there's better ones out there to be playing. And I think in the structural rise, they could have been done better, and I just don't find it that fun to play. I don't mind pinball stuff, but it ain't Pokemon Pinball. That's a good game. So what do you guys think of Sonic Spinball? Do you actually like it better than me? I don't think it's actually that popular of a game when it comes down to it. And yeah, that's it for that game. We got one last major game, then we got 2 arcade games in 1993 to go for Sonic. I'm still going. I'll see you then.